Hi there, and welcome to the 16 Style Types page. We're so happy to have you with us. Well, we're chatting today to some of our past participants of Your Type of Style, our online membership program, which marries psychological type and style concepts in a new and exciting way. And we have with us Patty with preferences for ENFP. And we have with us Diane, preferences for ISTJ. And we really thought this would be a fascinating conversation since Patty and Diane have what are called four-letter type opposite preferences, and both had terrific experiences and continue to have throughout the class they've been participating in, but quite different experiences. And we've been getting a lot of questions about what you'll get out of the program, and what if I don't know my type before starting. And we thought, what better way than to have two women who've had such a positive experience share their experiences. So together with Imogen Lamport, my co-creator of the program, we're excited to be spending this time with you and hearing from Patty and Diane and what they can share with us about the program. So our overarching theme today is how does our type influence our choices in style? What is this correlation between type and style? And Patty, you had a really interesting experience, and you used the word inspiration a lot when you talk about how you have correlated your preferences for ENFP, the style inspirer, to your style.
Yes, I have. What attracted to me to this program was just the fact that style had anything to do with clothing, or I mean that your type had anything to do with the style. And I mean, I was like, really? How could that be? I was so intrigued by it because as an ENFP, I'm a big picture person. I'm the opposite of Diane and a lot of things, and so I just intuitively do things. There's so many things that went on, but this was such an inspiration to me to actually learn that there were formulas, that people actually had a reason for doing things, and I had taken Imogen's other two programs, so I knew a little bit about my body type and things like that, which helped. But what was not necessary in this program, because you really delve into what makes me pick that to win. Why does that feel good on today? And why doesn't it feel good on tomorrow? And I didn't know those things. And one of the things that Jill taught me through the program, was that for me, what I'm feeling inside has to show on the outside. And that was like the biggest aha moment of the whole program for me. I'm like, wow, that made so much sense to me, because sometimes I would go in and I'd be going somewhere and I'd wear something the day before and it was fine. And I'd go in and I'd put them on. I'm like, yuck, I look crazy. I look awful. And I couldn't understand why it didn't work. And that was probably one of the biggest key moments to me in this program. And it was early on that I learned that, when we were talking about being authentic. And that was freeing. It was totally freeing for me.
Yeah, what a wonderful word, freeing, and how we can all experience that in a different way. And Diane, your approach coming from the details first was a really different way of taking in information. And some of the words that we heard from you were around rules and formulas. And that's sometimes a theme we see often with ISTJs.
Yeah, I think I had a similar experience in that I had taken some other programs, and Patty and I had met in some other programs. And so we've been on this journey a while together, which has been fun. But I didn't realize, I would get to the personality part and I'd check off, I'd get all these words, but I didn't understand them. They weren't taking hold. I'm like, just get past that. Just I need my colors. I need all my rules. Right. That personality, what's that mean? Anything, just get dressed. And it wasn't, and then when I saw this type thing, I'm like, well, I needed a new challenge anyway. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And I know I'm an introvert. I know these things, and then when I really got into it, that's what made sense. That's what's like, now I know how to put the puzzle together. I didn't know how to, I could buy spicy clothes. I could buy these things, and I still am like, I go to my closet and I don't even know where to begin. And I go to bloggers or whatever, and I think I'd buy these 5 things, and I'd have these visions. I don't get vision right off the bat. I have to have the detail. But the missing link was me. And how do I do that detail? And when does my vision come? And I like rules. I want it black and white. Tell me, no, I can't wear this. I can wear this. These are my colors. And then when I go, I'll pick something to start the decision process. And then my vision at the end, I may end up with a totally different outfit than what I thought it was going to be. But my starting points are all the same.
Yeah.
So I can get dressed in 5 minutes and be done.
Yeah.
Where before I'd be like, I would try 5 things on and off, kind of feeling like Patty, like, well, this doesn't feel right. Well, it didn't feel right because I was trying to start from a vision versus what am I doing today? What's the weather? Do I have grandkids? Or am I wearing jewelry or not? And okay, let's go. Then I'd start, and then I could just methodically go through, done, move on. And it would always feel right. But before, I would just be like, my husband would be like, why are you taking, 30 minutes to get dressed?
Yeah.
Because I didn't have my process. I didn't have my rules to follow. So that was very eye-opening for me. Very eye-opening.
Yeah.
I can still take 30 minutes to get dressed.
Well, I can too.
So can I, Patty. I think that's an intuitive thing. I think it always takes a bit longer because it's marrying that big vision with reality.
But I have learned something from you. Someone told me, one of you, to give myself a time limit. So I set the timer for 10 minutes. And whatever I have on, I have to go with. Because otherwise, I could be the endless possibilities of life, and it's not good.
And of course, this is one of the gifts of intuition, Patty, this sense of possibilities and options. And we sometimes use the metaphor of popcorn or fireworks or bouncing balls or any one of those kinds of metaphors that give a sense of things popping out in different directions. And what can be interesting for the rest of us is we are inspired by that. We see something that literally wasn't there before. But for the intuitive themselves, they can sometimes not be able to completely connect all of those dots for us, and sometimes we just have to take it on faith that this is what's happening. And when it comes to style and a process for getting ready, it can just seem like some alchemy is happening. We don't know what it is, particularly those of us who like to follow a formula.
Right.
Yeah, I can remember as we go through this, there's so many cool things that happen with learning how what's a style recipe, and you learn all these different words and processes. And I can remember one time, one of the things says, well, you're going to go shop your closet or something, or if you're going out on shopping, what are the things that you need? And I thought, do you have your list? And I thought, what list? Who makes a list? Do you have your list of things that you need? I thought, I've never thought of doing that. So I've learned a lot of really valuable tools because that never occurred to me that you make a list of things you need in the future. I was like, really? Okay. I hope I don't sound stupid, but that's just the way my mind, I had to learn that there are procedures to use that can help me. And they do. They do help me.
I think
So
that's one of those things, isn't it, where it's like, you can end up with too many different things and nothing works together, or we end up with 10 of the same things because we keep buying the same thing. It's a bit like, the shopping list for the...
But on purpose.
But it's, so having the list just gives you a little bit of structure and boundaries to go, I think every type can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
One of the things that surprised me that I learned, and I'm still learning, is the J on the end of the ISTJ, in that limited options. And we were doing the closet, I think it was the, pick an outfit for every day of the week. And I'm like, me first, I'm like, I've already gone through the details going, I don't need to do that. So it was always surprising that when I did do it, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. They always say, do it because you're going to learn something. Where my husband would get impatient, like, you've already discounted everything because in your mind, you've gone through all the detail and it's not there. So I started that exercise thinking, well, I'm not going to do it every day because I don't know. But what I realized is I had too many choices. I had all my tops, and it was like springtime. So it was transitioning from spring to summer, and every day is different here in Kansas. It could be 100 degrees, it could be 50 degrees. You just didn't know. But so when I was going to my closet, I was scanning, I don't know, at the time, I think I had like 60 tops or something. I don't have that many now, and it was overwhelming. And I started an exercise where I'm like, nope, based on the weather this week and what I'm going to do, 14 tops, 2 per day, choice. And I moved them and didn't look at anything else. And it forced me to do that. And I realized I really like less options. I don't want this many options all the time. It's too, and I think that was the thing. I struggled the whole year because I take in so much detail. And it was a lot to figure out, how do I recap this? I'm struggling with how to recap it and decipher it down to the nuggets that I needed to remember. And I think it was because there was so much detail, like too many options, that towards the end of the year when we were trying to, I think, look at our color contrast and our value contrast, I literally had to do, okay, shorts, 1 pair of shorts, 4 tops, different, that's it. I can only concentrate, even though I like detail, on so many variables, limit my variables, or I can't, even for me, can't get through it. So that, and then going to my closet and going, I'm looking at fall going, well, I surely don't want as many tops as I had last year. So it's kind of freeing that way, that I don't need so much, to feel comfortable. That was a surprise.
And that's a marvelous insight into how a lot of SJs and ISTJs are a wonderful example of how it can be like, the term I use is drinking from a fire hydrant. Just far too much information coming at you, far too many options and choices, and it can actually be debilitating, can lead you to a place of not being able to take any action. And what we often find is that our dominant intuitives are often excited by that sense of possibilities, and you close too many of them down and they feel like they're being put into a box, right? Like you're cutting things off from me. Yeah,
but when I get too many, then I can get paralyzed too, because I don't move in any direction. Then I'm like, oh, there's this and there's this and there's this, and so I'm out there like that jack in the box going and jumping everywhere. But what one of the things that I came to mind when Diane was talking is and I just have to say this, how helpful the people of this program were. The Facebook group, I wore them out. I think I wore a few of them out. But because as an ENFP, there's a lot of exercises where we have to do recapping, and I would see these charts come up, and I see all these things, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do any of it. And finally, I think it was Imogen said, you don't have to do it that way. I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. Because you see, it's very intimidating for me to see. I mean, I love it. I'm just so envious that people can do that. But I sat down to do it, and I was like, I don't know where to start. I don't know. I can write down one word, and that's all I can get. Because my mind doesn't work that way. I realized there are different ways, and then that's really, I realized was some self-acceptance, and that's okay, because most of the world doesn't think like in those realms of circular kind of things. Most people tend to be more line item people, I think, at least in my world. So it's been a very freeing thing to learn, and really acceptance of myself has really grown a lot through this program.
Yeah. What was interesting about that, Patty, is to go along with that is you learn that everyone does things differently. So when you put something out there, to read their comments, it really does trigger like, oh, well, I didn't think of it that way. Or I'd read on somebody else's post and I'm thinking one way, and all of a sudden somebody will say something, I'm like, well, that was interesting. I'll have to try that. And it was at the end here when we were trying to recap, and I was struggling with how to do it, and I actually haven't done the wrap up yet, which I will, and I ended up doing that bullseye. And somebody asked me, said it was really creative. I'm like, yeah, that's my number 5 value, you know. But I know that I think it was triggered from a post that you had done on several modules earlier when you were doing a mind map that you drew, and you had Ian FP or whatever in the center, and then you have these lines. And I thought, oh God, I did that as a teenager, and I tried it, and it just wasn't, it wasn't working. But it came back to me several modules later when I was trying to recap, and I thought, okay, in my structured, organized way, still creative, it ended up being this bullseye that I just did circles and did the layers. I'm like, now I can see it all. This makes sense. But I don't think I would have gotten there without the trigger of somebody like you posting your mind map that kind of freed my mind to think of the information in a different way. So that was the beauty of that phase group, was to get those triggers and those different ideas, you know?
It was still all very organized, very exact.
It was, and, you know, it's my way, but I had some color on there. I had some color.
Oh, it was great. I tried to duplicate it, and I went, I can't do this.
No, you're free form. You're free form. I wouldn't want to constrain you that way. Mine's still kind of, you know.
It was great. It was great.
But it was just that triggering off of each other and learning from each other to help us all kind of think differently in our own minds. That is just one of the really nice things about the group.
And that's what happens in a self-directed group like this, you know, where the pathway is something you can rely on and trust, and there is a sense of trust in the group, and the fact that you can share at whatever degree that you want to. And we saw varying degrees of sharing in the group, and that's normal for when people come together, and as well as people have all kinds of things happening in their life over the period of a year. But that type diversity, I mean, you know, to really hear somebody who is so different to you, and you can literally have a, that would never have occurred to me in a million years. Isn't that amazing? And, you know, one of the things that we say is each of the 16 style types brings something unique and wonderful to style, and we can all learn something from one another. So there is no type that has a mortgage on style. All of us are bringing something that's valuable to it. And when you're in the Facebook group together, you get that learning and you know, to see that kind of sharing and that bouncing, and it's, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats, and everyone's boat was lifted through that sharing, that offering of yourself, what you've learned and explored.
Yeah, I think one of the things I love about, you know, seeing all the different types together is that every type is learning something from another type. Every type gets something out of a different perspective, and often it's even just going, there is a different perspective, because very often we get so stuck in our own
reminder. A good reminder.
And it's really good to go, wow, that person thinks so differently from me. And I think, and that's where this program really kind of rolls out past style into your life.
Oh, yes.
Is because we're all, I don't think any of us live with our type same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that with just with the family dynamics. And my oldest daughter, her family live here too. And I would say that the other mother-in-law, I don't know that she's the same as Patty, but she's pretty opposite than me. She is the juggler that can just like, she's not retired and she gets more done than I do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's painting this and she's doing this and she's off talking to so-and-so and she's doing this fundraiser and I just get exhausted sometimes listening to her. But I'm fascinated because I'm like, and we get along great. But I had to really, and this class helped, even though I've known her for many years now, understand that her process is just very different from mine. And so and so she'll get a little frustrated with, well, Diane, why can't, you need to start painting again. You need to go do this. And I'm like, yeah, but my vision is still not there. So I'm procrastinating until I get my ducks in the row to go do it. I can go do it. She'll just go create something like in a day. I'm like, I can't process that way.
Yeah.
So it's just really fascinating when you take it outside the group and think about people, you know, whether it's family or friends, you're like, now I get it. Now I understand this, either this struggle in how we communicate or why we communicate so well, or, you know, whatever it is. It's just, it's fascinating. That little light bulb just like wants to go off all the time. Like, oh, I got that, you know, so it's pretty fun.
And look, type doesn't explain everything, but what it does explain, it does it beautifully. It does it through observation and non-judgmental language. And this can be so helpful, particularly with people that we struggle to see where they're coming from. And it gives us a language that is free of judgment, that helps us to reach inside the world of another person and try and build that bridge if you know, we feel there's a bit of a gap between us, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It does.
Yeah. Patty, you mentioned something interesting earlier about acceptance and how that had shifted for you during the program. I wondered if you wanted to share a little bit more about what some of those elements were, or maybe some of the experiences that you had that particularly opened the door into accepting yourself more as you are.
Yeah, I think the acceptance for me comes from well, I'm older, and your body's changing, and there's all kinds of things happening with that. So one of the reasons I even started all this process was to learn how to dress at my age and what was appropriate, because I could no longer do the same that I did when I was younger. So that one of the big things that, again, one of you said was that we, no matter what size we are, what weight we are, what age we are, that we are worth having nice clothes. And that was so key for me to hear, because I'm retired and I am a crafter. I do a lot of things around here. A lot of times I'm in really grubby clothes, but I do a lot of things, meetings and stuff outside when I'm not secluded to my house. But it was harder because I'm not making a lot of money or anything, harder to justify having nice clothes. And I know I'm not the only one in that situation. But it almost felt guilty if I spent money on nice clothes for just me, you know, for not doing anything. And so somewhere along the line with all this process, I realized that it was okay. You know, it was, I'm worth it. It's okay that I'm allowed to look okay at this. I'm allowed to spend money. And if it doesn't fit me in a year, that's okay. You know, if I go back down to another size, that's okay. If I don't, that's still okay. And that was that was a big thing for me. Another thing was in learning about our and how we think, and when we were trying to come up with words for our personality, or, you know, our style recipes and everything. And I kept going all over the map with it, quite frankly. I could not figure out I'm like, how do people know what their words are? It would be like, it was just like, I felt like I needed a tutor half the time, but because I was just kind of grasping at straws with some of this. There were new concepts, and they had to kind of make them my own. And some of the processes we went through in learning that, and learning the words, and sometimes I would write something, and I can remember writing something very personal at one point, and I put it out there, and after I did, I went, oh, I should not have done that. And I was really kind of scared, because I thought, I don't know what's going to happen. But the acceptance and love that I got from people was amazing. And it was something that I was going through, and I needed some help with it, and I needed some understanding. And because of that, it allowed me to be more open to people. And I'm generally pretty open to people, but it allowed me a new space in my life, a new space in my heart for myself, a new acceptance for myself, that I'm okay just the way I am. That I'm just, and I know that, and in my head I knew that, but there's a long distance between me and my heart. And somehow during the process of this journey, and this has been quite the journey, I've had a lot of things in my family, really, really serious things going on. So some of the time I wasn't as present as I wanted to be, but some of the time I was very engrossed in everything. And it allowed me the freedom, again, to be who I needed to be, that I didn't have to be perfect in this, didn't have to do this perfectly, that I could just do what I could do. And like one of the people in the group said, if you can't do it now, do it another month. And I thought, well, hello, there you go. Because I was worried about getting everything done at the end of the month. You know, I didn't want to get behind. But I knew that there was just so much support from people that it made it quite enjoyable.
Yeah. I love that phrase
I don't know
you
if I answered the
used.
question.
That phrase you used, Patty, a new space in my heart for myself. I think that's really, really beautiful. And I think, you know, if we could wish something of value to women doing this program, it would include a kernel of that, you know, our own version of a new space in our heart, because we are often so hard on ourselves, all in different ways, of course. There are just seemingly innumerable ways we can beat up on ourselves, and typing, you know, gives us another opportunity for us to do that. You know, when we look at the flip side of gifts, we can often be reminded of the rich tapestry that it is. So I love that, you know, that new place in your heart for yourself. I think that's beautiful.
And I think it's great too that you realise that you've got lifetime access, so you don't have to, you know, if you miss some stuff, that's fine.
I missed the whole Z thing, okay? We were talking about that one. I'm like, when did that come in? I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, I missed that. We're going to go back through that this time.
Yeah.
I missed.
Yes.
There are things I missed.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll just catch up on.
Yeah, exactly. And Diane, what were some of the key things for you around authenticity and you know, feeling like who you are is enough exactly as you are, and perhaps how that related to your style? What were some of the big learnings for you?
I think for me, it took the full year for it to all kind of fall into place. But I felt here at the end, there's kind of a sense of coming home to myself, or a peace, kind of like acceptance of, okay, this is who I am. That's okay. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to even, I'm finally, I think, we'll see as we go into fall, if I feel like I went out in a wrong outfit, I don't beat myself up anymore, because I'm like, well, guess what? Nobody else was in a perfect outfit either, probably. And they didn't notice. So why am I worrying about it? Where before I would be all caught up because I'd feel uncomfortable. And then I'd be like, oh, they're all staring at me because I have this foo-foo scarf on or something. And I was, you know, not feeling me. And now I'm like, I can get dressed and feel like me. And if it's 100% or it's 8%, I'm okay. Because I dressed in a way that made me comfortable to my values, to what I'm trying to express, which is understated, always appropriate, not calling attention, but not being invisible as we age. I don't want to become invisible, but I don't want to be like, oh, did you notice her walking through? You know, so now that I understand all that, I'm much more relaxed about what I'm wearing, and I'm not as uptight about it. So I don't know if it's a confidence or just a, I don't know, a sense of, I realize who I am, my method to my madness, why it's that way, what my triggers are, so I can be careful, and then I can just go on about my day. So it's very freeing that way. But it did take probably until that 10th month where it all started, like the light bulb started going like, that's how that connects, and that's with that, and okay. And then it was all like, that's why I had to do that bullseye. I had to get it all down on paper. But it's very freeing to finally, you know, in my 60s here, finally feel like, okay, I'm home. I know where I'm at. This is good. So I'd highly recommend anybody who would be watching this, I would say do it, because that means if you're watching this, you're searching. You're still searching for that missing piece. That's when I saw, you know, whatever you were advertising a year ago, I'm like, that's the piece I'm missing. Or maybe I'm going to find out. And I would tell anybody, this is the missing piece, which is yourself. The whole puzzle, it's yourself. So.
And I love how you were talking about, you know, you can go out, you know, not being 100% in the outfit now and still feel acceptance for yourself, which is so great, because the ISTJ is our most appropriate kind of type, where appropriateness is such a core driver. So actually having that self-acceptance that nobody's perfect and you don't have to be either is a really lovely thing, to give yourself.
Well, I think the difficulty I've had in the last several years is when I was growing up, and I don't know if this phrase came from my mom or it's just something that was innate, but it was appropriate clothes for appropriate occasions. And I taught my 2 adult kids that. You have clothes for school, you have clothes for church, you have clothes for when we get together with family, you have, you know, whatever it is, the holidays, whatever. But they were different clothes. Today, anything goes with anything. So I always felt a little unsure about, I don't know what level I'm supposed to be. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And now I realize I really don't need to worry about that. As long as I've gone through my processes and feel comfortable where I'm at, because anything goes out there. So if I want to be here, then that's where I'm at. And I don't worry about if somebody else, I may notice still, because you always notice, but I may like I have one friend who has very minimalist style. And she's a little petite thing, and I'm 5'10", and so it's like, okay, I stand out anyway, you know. And when I first met her, you know, I was trying way too hard, and then I really realized, why am I doing this? And even today, might get together just for on the back porch or something, and we'll be, you know, I might have a dress on, and she'll have her shorts on, and next time she'll have a dress, and I don't worry about it. I'm like, we're just us. Where before I'd always, am I dressed appropriately? Am I fitting in here? It's nice to not, at least I hope, and I know I'll still fall back into that some, especially in new situations, but I feel like I can get through it much quicker now than before. I can just like, oh, I'll laugh at that. That's fine. I won't do that again. Okay, we're fine. You know, so it's a tough.
This is also the beauty of self-acceptance through type, because we would all agree self-acceptance is a wonderful thing. When it's a generic term, it loses often its meaning and its value. And when the two of you talk about self-acceptance, the specific things you talk about are very, very different to one another. And this is also one of the gifts that type gives us, is that lens through which we can accept ourselves. So, you know, hearing you talk, Diane, and use percentages, you know, that is really interesting and core to you, and how important that is for you to recognize and claim that and own that and believe in it and love yourself for having that, you know, inclination and those preferences. You don't need to seek anybody else's permission. It's just, you know, a part of who you are, and from that place you can accept yourself in a new way that you just didn't have all the pieces there to be able to do it.
Right. And I think I've always been, well, one, because you're reserved as an introvert, so you're shy, which I'm never going to say shy to my granddaughters ever, 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 because it's a different connotation. Now I'm like, no, I'm reserved. I don't have enough experience or information on this to participate. When I get that, I will be comfortable participating. That's a whole different perspective of introvert than you're just shy.
Exactly. And
so that gave me a whole different thought process, you know, of doing that. But I always knew that I was independent.
Yeah.
So there was kind of, but I'm shy, but I'm independent, but the whole type thing kind of put all that together that like, now I get it. Now I get how I was growing up. I get why I do the things that I do. And you can just relax into it, which is just amazing. I wish I'd known all this way back when.
I know. I often say I don't know how anyone gets dressed without knowing their colours, or has a relationship with somebody without knowing something about type. So, Patty, I'm glad your connection allowed you to join us there. Patty obviously had a little, in case you were watching and wondering what happened with, you know.
Patty just dropped out for a second. Yeah, it's fascinating. I have to say, like my son is an ISTJ, and it's really helped me, because as a parent, understanding his type, and knowing that he had to have seen it and done it multiple times to actually have the confidence to do it on his own. Because that's that sense, that's, you know, you're sensing preference, and it's that, you know, I need to have the data bank, and until I've got the data bank, everything's really hard, and that blank page is a nightmare.
Yes, total nightmare.
And so for me, like, understanding that part of type is like going, oh, that was so helpful as a parent.
It threw me off a little bit when they talked about you don't like change, because I've moved like 8 different times in my adult. I like change. What I finally have realized is I like change I can control.
Yeah.
Big
There you
difference.
go.
So
Yeah, that's,
when I
they?
first retired, and the girls, and it was way back when they were going into middle school and high school, and my husband was traveling more, and it just made sense. But I made sure, and I remember telling myself, you have to go out and do stuff. So I would go volunteer and be nervous at first until I had the routine. Or I'm going to go do that Bible class even though I don't know anybody, but I'm going to go do it. Or I'm going to, like, I played tennis when I was young. And so when my daughter was a senior, I thought, it's time for me, you know? I wasn't going to play volleyball at that point. And I thought, oh God, I haven't played tennis in forever. But I wanted to so bad. But I would see these adults playing and they were so good, and I just petrified myself. So finally one summer I said, no, I'm going to go to the Parks and Rec and I'm just going to play. It came back to me and I was obsessed afterwards. But that initial step of change, I have to force myself to do because I don't have the experience to fall back on, you know, or it'd been 20 years before because I wanted to control it.
Yes.
Once I did it, I was fine. But boy, that getting over that hump to go do it. So I kind of have it in my mantra, like, you need to say yes to things. You can always stay home. You need to say yes to things. And I'm always happy I do. But as an introvert, sometimes you just like, no, I'm going to stay home and read a book, you know, or something like that. So it's been an interesting journey for sure.
And that illustrates perfectly how we are not types, we are people. And, you know, when you take generic type information and you personalize it to yourself, then it really becomes valuable because you've applied it to your life and all the nuances that are part of the life that you are living right now. And that's a wonderful example of that. Patty, we have a lot of extroverts who are interested in joining the program. From your perspective as our extrovert in this little conversation here, what kinds of things do you think extroverts might find particularly valuable about the program? What might really float their boats?
Oh, I think they would like, they'll like all of the exercises that we do probably because they're so interactive, and they'll love the Facebook. Excuse me, the Facebook group they will adore because it gives us a sounding board. As extroverts, we need to, in all the exercises you did something that was great, which took me a while to learn, but you gave us a summary that we could do. And you told us that up front, but I didn't know which way to do it, where we could do all of the things kind of as one, or you could do all of the play things as separate things. And as an extrovert, for me, doing them all as one and being able to talk about all of them at the same time really helped. And then being able to talk to people in the group and say, I don't know what's going on, or how are you looking at this? And that whole relational thing is there. I mean, if you didn't have a group, I couldn't do this. I mean, I would just say, I would be like, feeling like I was in a box. And, you know, as an extrovert, we can't be in a box. We need to be out there. So we, and I feel like I am out there sometimes, but it was really great to see other extroverts also, and to see their impression of, especially when you had another type like your own, and especially if they were in the same color palette, that was great. Then it was just like you'd see things in a new way from them, in a new way. So it was, you get to write, you get to do anything. There's action things, so you don't have to just do all writing. There's play shops where you do things and try things on, and you're messing with things all the time. So it's not like sitting down doing schoolwork because you'd lose me.
Yeah.
You'd lose me there. So it's very interactive, and that was like the best for me. And I think anybody that as an extrovert really would enjoy this process because it's got a little bit of everything. So you're not just always on, but you're not always, you can participate how much you want, and you can but the extrovert part, it's right up there, Ali.
Yeah.
It's really it. You did a good job with that.
That's great. And you did a video recently, a short video,
I did.
summarizing, and you put it out there, and said I wasn't too sure
Yeah.
about putting it out there, and I was noticing like within an hour, like 30 comments
I know.
from all around the world of people in the group.
Yeah.
So that was interesting for you too, eh?
That is very cool. I forgot I did that. I was like, one day I just was like, okay, I just need to say this out loud. I'm not a person that does, so I went outside in the backyard talking to the fence, but I'm not a person that normally does a lot of videos and stuff like people do those. I'm pretty self-conscious about that a lot of times, but after that's one of those when I hit the button, I went, oh no, what's going to happen? I was overwhelmed. I mean, overwhelmed with the responses to that and the kindness. People are so kind and gracious and caring about what's going on and giving input. And I was just like, wow, it was incredible. It really did give me a lot of confidence because after I did that, I was not so sure, quite frankly. And I it's like when you hit that send button and you're going, oh. But every time I've done that in this program, it's come out well. So,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's just me stepping out of myself, though, because I'm great with extrovert things on a lot of things, but when it gets to personal things, sometimes that's really hard for me.
Yeah.
That's really hard. I become very shy at some things, and which is odd for an extrovert to say, I guess. But a lot of us are kind of shy about some things, and like chit chat is hard for me. But put me in a group of people and tell me to do something, I can do it. So so it's been great in that regard. And I was surprised. I was really surprised. I was like, oh, okay. It was great. It was a great affirmation to myself, but a great affirmation and just the courage that I had to do it, because ordinarily I wouldn't do that. Yeah. Literally would not do that. Yeah. At all. Yeah. I think this is the first video I ever did.
And Diane, is there anything you'd share for introverts who are watching, who are thinking, oh, am I going to have to put myself out there too much? Or, what's going to be helpful for introverts to keep in mind who are wanting to join, but also, wanting to make sure that, they can self-pace and do all the things that they need to do to make their participation comfortable for them?
I think that each module is a month. So for me, and I don't know if it's a detail thing or an introvert, probably a little of both, I would read everything at the beginning. And then I'd have to simmer. It just have to kind of sit there. And I would go through it and make decisions like, yeah, I'll do that. This, not so much, maybe that's too extrovert or, whatever. But it would simmer. And then I would tend to come back to actually key it in the spreadsheet or write it down or do the exercise or whatever later in the month. And then sometimes it rolled into the next month because all of a sudden it would just like click and I just have to get it all out. But I think some of it is that I have to make it my own. I have to, since I don't have experience with it, I have to think about it a little bit longer before I can make a decision, kind of. And I will read during that time. I'll get on and I'll do it. I probably do more likes.
Yeah, right.
And then repeating. I'm not one to repeat what somebody else said. I'll just like theirs and like, for me, that's ditto, kind of like, why do I need to say it again? Even though some people repeat because it's that affirmation, and I get where that might be valuable. For me, it's like, I'm not going to write it again. I'll just like, whatever. But I'm also like intrigued by, well, what are the comments? Somebody else already posted on that. What are they seeing? What comments are they getting as part of that information gathering for me? Even though I have to make it my own decision, I kind of want that comfort of, I know what's going on out there, and then it makes sense, and then I will post. So that process, but a month gives you that time to do that. Yeah. I think when I listened to Tracy saying how fast the first group went through, I'm like, oh my God, I would have been so overwhelmed. I wouldn't have gotten past one, because I need that time to process it.
Absolutely.
Before I before my own decisions will like kick in. And it's so funny. I think I posted that there in the group one time, because this whole vision thing has really been an eye-opener for me. Because it's not that I don't have vision, but it's my fourth function. It always comes later, and it's usually in the shower or it's first thing in the morning, because my husband will give me a hard time, like, aren't you ever getting up? I'm like, not at the moment. I got lots of things coming out, you know, because I simmer on it. And then all of a sudden I'll wake up and like, this idea and that idea, and oh, this just gelled, and then I want to run into the office and I want to get it all written down. And but I need that month time frame. So for introverts, I'd say you'll have enough time, but you won't be rushed. You'll be okay collecting that information, and you don't have to be the first one to post. You don't even have to respond. You can just like if you want, or you can just read, and then when you're comfortable, you can jump in. And you'll find that you will. I think I posted something a couple of weeks ago, and I wasn't even thinking about it being as personal as it was. I was just getting it out, and everybody was like, "You were so brave." I'm like, "Oh my God, what did I write?" And going back and reading, I'm like, "Oh my God, did I say too much? Did I say too much?" And but I felt, no, I'm comfortable. This is a safe space. So I didn't, you know, and then I made sure, no, this is in my group and not on my Facebook page. You know?
That's right.
We'll have to make sure we're in the right group.
Everything's thriving.
So, but you have the time and you have the safety, and you can jump in when you're ready, or just kind of watch what's going on and do it on your own. Whatever works for you, and it could change over the entire year.
Well,
I know I posted a lot more meaningful stuff maybe at the end than up front, because it just wasn't quite gelling yet. And then as soon as it started gelling, then I was like, okay, now I have something to jump in and say something that maybe isn't said the same way as somebody else did, you know, so.
Yeah, that's really great advice for introverts. And, you know, earlier we were talking about some of the metaphors that relate to Patty's dominant function, you know, the fireworks and the bouncing ball and the popcorn. And of course, the metaphor for your dominant function is the photo album or the filing cabinet or the USB stick. Yeah, this collecting and curating and organizing of information, which is often why that process can take so long, because we need to fill up those data banks, and those data banks are often the source of confidence that you have this solid platform. Again, illustrating how type gives us so many interesting ways of looking at how we naturally do things.
Yeah, if I don't have it organized, then I don't feel right yet. I don't feel like I have it. It's not that I may get it, but if I haven't organized it in a format for easy retrieval or for connecting or whatever, then I'm not quite there. I haven't crossed my T's, I haven't dotted my I's, I haven't, you know, and that's important for me to be able to share, because then it makes sense to me. It's all, you know, practical, organized. I don't know, just the way I operate.
And if I haven't collaborated with somebody or talked to somebody, or I don't know what I'm thinking. I can't get to that point.
That's right.
I can't get there. I'm like, I can write all day long, and unless I talk to someone else about it, it's like, and that group is just so valuable. I just have to say, I've been in a lot of groups over the years, and this is probably, and a lot of times people worry about being in groups with other women. I know that for a lot of reasons, but this group is probably the most respectful, safe group of women that I've ever been with. And it's so cool because they're from all over the world. And I realized that one day when I texted somebody, and it was the middle of the night there. I did not know it. I didn't know where they were from. She's like, it's 12:15 here. I'm like, oh God, I'm sorry. You learn those things. But,
that's right.
You don't even think about that though. You know, I mean, it's just, and the perceptions of things are so different from, and it was very, 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 very good for an extrovert to be able to have those connections out there, because I don't know what I'm thinking unless I ask somebody.
Yep. I hear you, Patty. I know of which you speak.
Oh.
So do either of you have any closing words things we haven't chatted about that you just want to share before we wrap up the conversation?
I don't know. It's just it's a great journey. I mean, I don't know how to say it enough, that it's you learn so much about yourself, but you learn so much about others, and sharing it across the world is like amazing to me. And it's very supportive. It is probably the safest group I've felt like ever being in. Maybe the others I knew too much, so I knew them too well, and so it didn't feel as safe, or there's something about it, but they're all very supportive, respective, engaging women that are all on the same journey, but it's our own personal journey, but yet we're sharing the journey and what we're learning, and it's amazing to watch people grow, you know, then their insights, and when they finally find their type and they're so excited, and then the ahas that come after that, it's just wonderful to see and share that with each other, because it's a sign of growth. We're all growing and learning from it. So
yeah,
I guess
I think if anybody is wondering if this would be the program for the program for them, it's worth the risk. It's worth the risk to take it, and it's a big step, and it's a financial step for a lot of people too. But it is the best thing I've ever done for myself, and it is worth the risk and worth every step that it takes. It comes with a lot of work. It's not just sitting there, but it is so valuable that you're learning things that, I mean, for me, I learned things that I never knew. A lot of things that I never knew. And I mean, it's just crazy what you learn in this, and what you can use in all of your life, and not just in regarding to style and your type, but I use it every day now. So it's great. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
yeah.
Well, thank you both. It's been a real pleasure having you here and having this chat and getting your perspectives on the program and everything. And we can all, like, get something out of this. And it's quite funny. It's like, I understand you from the introvert, and then I also experience my extrovert husband, and he has to talk stuff out even when I think, why are you telling me this?
I know. My husband is the opposite of me, so he's probably thinking the same thing.
So our class starts on the 1st of September. So sign up before then. There's a link up in the start of this post, in the thread. Otherwise, head over to 16styletypes.com and look for your type of style. And of course, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. We're more than happy to answer them as well.